Hi, I'm Tara from Wild Bird Farm, and today we are going to talk all about getting ourselves organized for seed planting. There are cool season and warm season annuals, and we are not going to be talking about those warm season annuals yet. Things like sunflowers and celosia love warm dirt to grow in. Today, we are going to be talking about cool season flowers. These seeds love getting their start in cool temperatures, in cool soil conditions. So there's a couple of key things that you need to know as we get started today. One, you'll want to know what growing zone you're in. I am in zone 5. They made some changes to this recently, so we went from 5A to 5B. Not a lot of difference there. I had a feeling we were sort of 5B for a while now. And then the second thing you'll want to know is you'll want to know when your last frost is this spring. Also a good idea to know when your first frost is expected in the fall. But for purposes here, we are in January and we're thinking about putting our cool season plants out earlier than our last expected frost of the season. So mine, I looked it up. I think it used to be the 1st of May. But as of yesterday, when I looked it up, in our area in central Iowa, our last expected frost date is April 25th. So that's the date I'll be working from, but it's important for you to have your specific date, and you can count back those weeks with me as well. If you're like me, you might have a cupboard or a basket full of seeds, and it can be overwhelming to know what to start and when and where to plant certain things. Cool flowers, or hardy annuals as they are sometimes called, can be planted out earlier than your last frost date. The recommendation there is that you can plant plants out anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost. I have been growing for several years now, so I know the plants that I can plant out closer to that 8-week date, and some that I really can't plant out much earlier than 4 weeks before, or maybe even a couple 2 weeks before my last expected frost. So throughout this late winter and spring season, I'm going to be doing a lot more videos breaking down what I'm planting and when. But for now, for today, I have 4 areas that I like to plan for in this late winter, early springtime period. One is in my hoop house. It's a DIY hoop house. I planted in there going on 5 seasons now. I definitely plant in there earlier than anything else in the ground. Secondly is cool annuals that can be direct sown. So over the years, I've found some annuals that prefer to grow directly from seed out in the ground, planted out in the cool temperatures. And then the third area I've kind of broken into 2 sections. And these are seeds that I start indoors under lights, but they're cool hardy. So I plant them out, I harden them off and plant them out earlier than my last frost date. And I sort of split that category into 2. Those that are super cold hardy that I know are going to withstand frosts and a little bit of wind, and those that are maybe a little slightly more tender and then I'm going to put out closer to that 6-week time period, or maybe back it up into only 2, 3, or 4 weeks before my last frost. So we'll walk through each of these categories now, but I just kind of wanted to give you an overview. So one more time, get your last expected frost date and get your growing zone, and we're ready to get started.
Let's take a look at the list of the direct sown cool season crops. They include forget-me-nots, agrostemma. There's a 2 by that one because I'll also be starting some indoors from seed. Cress, bupleurum, larkspur, nigella, and dara. Depending what zone you're in, you may have a completely different list. Moving on to growing in my DIY hoop house. And I have showed this in other videos. Here's a picture of it sitting out in some snow. But this adds an extra layer or 2 of protection for those early season crops. I've read a couple different things. One source said that for every layer you have over your plants, you can add a zone. So the plastic over the hoop house would be a zone, and each layer of Agribon inside would potentially add a zone to what I currently am. So rather than being a zone 5, if I had the plastic and one layer in there, I could potentially be a zone 7. I've also read that for the Agribon, each layer adds 5 to 7 degrees of protection for your plants. So that would be another way to look at it. Having grown several seasons in my hoop house, I can also use that information to decide what plants and when I should get them planted out. Here you can see my list of what I plan to put out in the hoop house. That includes anemones and ranunculus from corms, stock, sweet william, Canterbury bells, cerinthe, and possibly sweet peas, all from seed. It's time to get some of these going, so I'll do separate videos and talk specifically about what I'm doing for each.
Okay, now this category of starting seeds indoors under lights and planting them out as little plugs. I break this into two sort of groupings of seedlings. One being super hardy. I've grown it for years. I watch it and I'm amazed at how much cold and frost it can take. And then kind of on the other side of the cool hardy camp, those that make it in the cool weather, but I'm not wanting them out there in an ice storm. So I have a row that is 25 feet long, and a couple years ago my husband framed it in with 2x4s for me. I'm not sure I have a picture of it now, but when we actually go to start these seeds, and for sure when we plant them out, I'll get a lot of video for you. But we put some, I'm not sure if they're called couplings or something on the wood that will hold my hoops in place. So I am able to hoop and row cover these. I've actually thought about getting some old windows and just setting those along the 2x4s because we get such wind in the spring that lots of times that row cover blows right off. So I haven't had great success keeping the row cover on, but I do have this row that I can take advantage of and use and kind of push the envelope. Try new plants to see just how much cold they can take. And then those super hardy plants like the scabiosa and the snapdragons, I'm gonna put those out there early, hoping to get early blooms. They're gonna get ripped out when the heat comes because they aren't gonna love that, and I might have another succession ready to go then. So that's one area. And then the second area is just my in-ground regular planting. I can cover these with row cover if I need to, just holding it down with bricks and other things. But these are things that I generally just mulch with straw, and they'll get planted out anywhere from 2 weeks to about 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks for a couple of them before my last expected frost date. So let's look at a list of those.
So looking at my list of plugs I'll put out that I've found are the most hardy are on this short list here. This is a group that I'll put in that bed that I could use row cover on if needed. I know that scabiosa or pincushion flower and snaps are extremely hardy. They go out early and they barely blink at the frost. I have trouble getting my bells of Ireland long enough, so I'm going to try putting those out extra early this year. And then the cerinthe and the ranunculus are sort of a test for me. They grow great in the hoop house, but I'm running out of room in there, so I'm going to put some outside and see how they do out there earlier on. So now let's review my list of hardy annuals I'll be planting out as small plugs, anywhere between 2 and 6 weeks from my last expected frost. I'm guessing someone might be thinking, what about Lisianthus? Isn't that a cool flower? And yes, it is. I now grow mine from plugs that I buy from a supplier. I did grow for several years from seed and had success, but I need a larger volume now and just find it a lot easier to order plugs. The last step in all of this for me is to plug in what I'm starting and when, and eventually when I plant things out on a yearly calendar. This really helps keep me organized, and I can look back year from year and see what worked and what didn't.
All right, I hope all of that made sense. It's a lot to digest. There are great resources out there for you to take a deeper dive into this. Lisa Mason Ziegler wrote Cool Flowers, and she has a YouTube channel and podcast. Her website is a wealth of information. That would be a great place to go to get more information on cool flowers and hardy annuals. And then Danielle from North Lawn Flower Farm has done several YouTube videos on this. She explains things so well. I definitely recommend you check out some of her videos as well. As for us, that wraps us up today, but some of those hoop house flowers that we talked about actually need to get their seeds in some soil and get them sprouting here in the house under lights. So stay tuned. I'll be doing videos very soon, kind of just how I do things throughout this late winter and early spring season. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of that. See you next time.